Good evening. I call this meeting of the Montgomery County School Board to order at 7 p.m. on January 10th, 2023. Because this is an organizational meeting of the board, I will preside temporarily until the board chair is elected. As you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Our student representatives this evening are Emma Whitaker from Auburn High School and Sam Woosley from Blacksburg High School. Will you read our mission, vision, and core values now?
Yes. Our mission is, MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity, and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences.
Our beliefs are, all students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. Schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths. All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. Every child deserves an advocate. Honoring the voices of students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. Learning and teaching are collective efforts that begin at birth and involve the entire community. Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to a student's success.
Thank you. Our next item is the adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass? Yes. Ms. Parton?
Yes.
7 in favor.
All right, we have an agenda. Our next order of business is the election of the board chair. We have simplified the process this year. Anyone on the board may nominate another board member for the chair position. A nomination does not require a second. Once nominations are complete, we will then vote on each nominee in the order of their nomination. Do I have a nomination for the chair of the Montgomery County School Board?
I'd like to nominate Mark Chewbacca.
We have a nomination for Mark Chewbacca as board chair. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, nominations are closed. We will now vote on the nominee. Our nominee for board chair was Mark Chewbacca. Is there any discussion regarding this nomination?
I'd just like to say that I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm glad to hand the gavel over. And I wish you much success in your new role. And if you need any help, you can ask somebody else now. You can ask me.
I do have one thing. Mark, first of all, thank you for wanting to step up to a leadership role. It's not easy. It's very time-consuming, and there's some other demands that come with it, so there's a lot to consider when stepping up to a chair position. I want to thank you for reaching out to me, and I want to personally thank the board for reaching out to one another and discussing. I think that is a great thing that we have decided to do this year, and I hope that communication is open and continues. I will say that Ms. Graham had come to me back in November asking me for her support for chair. She has told me that since then, you and she have had conversation on the leadership role. And at that point, I want to say that I feel comfortable nominating you for chair. So thank you for your continued service as a board member, and keep the lines of communication open, and appreciate it.
Thanks, Dana.
Mark, I'm going to comment on that as well. I think you're probably thinking you're not going to get my vote, but I'm actually going to support you, okay? Because of the communication we've had in the last couple days, but I will urge you not to expect other board members to let me know things, because I do think we've got a little problem with that. And I know that our conversation, you've kind of said, hey, sorry, because I don't know that I would have known anything if it weren't for me reaching out to you. So, but with that being said, in a positive state, I'm ready to give you my vote. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Ms. Drake, can we have a roll call vote?
I lost internet access. I'm just refreshing. Give me just 1 second. Here we go. Ms. Bond?
yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
The motion carries, and Mark Chewbacca is elected Chair of the Montgomery County School Board for 2023. Mr. Chewbacca, congratulations, and I now turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you.
Oh, 2 copies. Okay. The more the merrier.
Well, thank you, Board. I appreciate your confidence in me, and I do appreciate the ability of us to move forward in a positive way and try to work together. It takes a number of years to get around to this kind of thing sometimes, and especially on some things. And I was so happy to see Joey Lyons in the front row here. In my first year on the board, I don't think I really knew the right way to do this, and I wish I'd reached out more back then for that kind of a thing, but we did work through it. It's good that I guess we can learn and move forward, so thank you again, and I'll do my best. I'm sure there'll be screw-ups here or there, and I'm sure I've got at least 3 former board chairs, I think, on the board, so I think y'all keep me in line, so thank you very much. All right. That's mine, I think. All right, so to continue the reorganization of the school board, we'll elect a vice chair. As with the election of the board chair, anyone on the board may nominate another board member. A nomination does not require a second. Once nominations are complete, we will vote on each nominee in the order of their nomination. Do I have a nomination for the vice chair of the Montgomery County School Board?
Chair Chewbacca, I would like to nominate Marty Graham as vice chair.
All right, we have a nomination for Marty Graham as vice chair. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, nominations are closed. We'll now vote on our nominee. Our nominee was Marty Graham for vice chair. Is there any discussion regarding this nomination?
I'm going to speak up and say the same thing, okay? Because I haven't heard a lot from you either, other than what I reached out to you. And I think if you're going to be in a leadership position, you have to do that no matter how busy you think the other person is, but relying on another board member to share information is really not how we be transparent and have a communication system set up and trust. So I'm going to give you my vote, but you got to reach out to me, okay, not somebody else.
I'll just make a comment. And you and I have chatted, Marty, and you and I have had a rocky road over the last few years. Though I think over the last several months, we've kind of learned to work together and come to some consensus. And I hope that can continue. I look forward to hopefully a very positive year with both you as vice chair, Mark as chair, and I will be supporting you with my vote.
Marty, I'm looking forward to working together, so thanks. All right. Any other discussion? Ms. Drake, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Ms. Graham? Yes. Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
The motion carries, and Marty Graham is elected to Vice Chair of the Montgomery County School Board for 2023. Congratulations, Marty. Do we want to switch?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. All right, moving on to the appointment of the clerk. Do I have a motion to appoint Brenda Drake as the clerk of the board?
A motion. To
Second.
appoint Brenda.
Second is made. Any discussion?
Nothing other than the fact that Brenda does a fabulous job, as always.
Yes.
And I want to thank Brenda for all of her support last year. We had quite the year, so thank you for everything.
All right, Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham? Yes. Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion passes. Brenda Drake is appointed as our clerk. Appointment of the deputy clerk for the Montgomery County School Board. Do I have a motion to appoint Morgan Woods and Dr. Bernard F. Bragan Jr. as deputy clerks of the Montgomery County School Board?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Thank you, Morgan. I know it's been the learning experience, but you've done a great job, and you've handled some meetings by yourself very well. So thank you from all of us. Looking forward to working with you again this year.
And same here. Again, thank you for the support you've provided over the past year for me. And hey, Dr. Bragan, welcome aboard as deputy clerk.
All right. Agreed. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Morgan Woods and Dr. Bragan are appointed deputy clerks of the board for 2023. Thank you. All right, adoption of the resolution affirming officers of the County School Board of Montgomery County. I need a motion to adopt a resolution affirming our officers as myself, Mark Chewbacca, for board chair, and Marty Graham for vice chair, Brenda Drake as clerk, Morgan Woods as deputy clerk, and Dr. Bragan as deputy clerk.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
All right, motion carries. All right, historically, the board chair has made appointments or sought volunteers for other committees and boards. This year's committee appointments include 2 members for liaisons to the Board of Supervisors, 1 VSBA voting delegate, 1 VSBA alternate, 1 liaison to the Southwest Virginia Governor's School, up to 2 liaisons for the Educational Foundation, and 1 liaison to the town of Blacksburg and 1 liaison to the town of Christiansburg. I think it's in the agenda what the appointments were last year, if anybody needs. Okay.
Yeah.
So do I have any volunteers or nominations for any of these appointments? Maybe we should go down the list, I don't know.
Yeah. Normally, the Board of Supervisors is the chair and the vice chair.
Correct.
So.
And I would like to at least, I think, be a liaison to the Board of Supervisors. Marty, would you like to be the second?
Yes.
Okay.
That's pretty
All right, so I have nominations for me and Marty for that. I had talked to Linwood. I think, Linwood, you are still interested, unless someone else is, in being the representative for the Southwest Virginia Governor's School. Is that right? All right, and I think as far as the MCEF, is there anyone who would like to be on that, liaison to that board?
I'm happy to stay on that board as well.
Okay,
Somebody wants to join me?
all right.
I'll stay as Town of Blacksburg liaison.
Okay.
I can just do it. You don't have to, since you got
Okay.
other stuff going on there.
Do that.
Chair Chewbacca, if no one else is interested, I would still be interested in being the VSBA delegate and staying on as a liaison for the town of Christiansburg, if the board so deems okay.
I'll stay with the town too as well.
So I have a question. We have liaisons for Christiansburg, the town councils, and Blacksburg twice. So are they two different obligations?
No, I think it was last year maybe, or the year before, I can't remember when, we started appointing to, just realizing that not everybody can necessarily make all those meetings, and allowing two different people to attend those meetings and report back to our board
Okay.
and be the liaison. Let's see, and I think we still need a VSBA alternate, which was me before. If nobody else wants to do it, I'm happy to do it. Would
I
you
don't
like
go
to?
I can
to
do that.
VSBA.
What's that?
I can do that.
You want, okay,
Yeah, I haven't gone to VSBA, so I don't
Okay.
feel comfortable with that.
all right. All right, so I guess we don't need a vote for this one,
You do.
correct? You do?
You do.
Okay. So the nominations are myself and Marty for Board of Supervisor Liaison, Dana as VSBA voting delegate, Marty Graham as VSBA alternate, Linwood Hudson for Southwest Virginia Governor's School, Linwood Hudson for Montgomery County Education Foundation, Jamie Bond for Town of Christiansburg Liaison, and Sue Cass as Town of Blacksburg Liaison.
Mr. Chewbacca, I had Dana Parton and Jamie Bond for Town of Christiansburg Liaison, is that correct?
That's fine, okay, sorry. Okay,
We need a motion.
all right, I need a motion to approve these nominations.
Make a motion that we approve all the nominations.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, adoption of a resolution appointing agent and deputy agent for signing claims. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the superintendent and, in his absence, the deputy superintendent of operations to serve as agent and deputy agent for signing claims?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to appoint the assistant superintendent as the primary superintendent designee, and in their absence, the deputy superintendent for operations as the secondary superintendent designee?
Motion.
Do I have
So
a s-
moved.
Do I have a second?
I thought it was the other way
So,
around.
yes, the other way around.
I thought it was the other way around.
Yes. The deputy is
I thought the
the,
deputy was the
right.
primary designee, and then the assistant, because right now we have an interim assistant, is the secondary.
In the past, it's been the person who was in the curriculum and instruction position who was the primary, and the person who was in operations and finance who was the secondary.
Well,
But I
I
don't think
still
that's-
believe it was the title
It's the title, not
and
so
not
much the
necessarily
position.
the responsibilities.
Can we have a second, and then we'll have a discussion? Because we have
Right.
a,
I think we did have a second, didn't we? Do we have a second, Morgan? No?
No. And that would mean that the motion would fail to lack of a second, but somebody can make another motion.
yeah.
I'll make a motion that we appoint the Deputy Superintendent for Operations as the primary superintendent designee and the interim assistant superintendent as the secondary superintendent designee.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Motion.
Can I make an amendment to that?
I
Since,
think- Do we have a second? Did we get a second? I think we need a second. before
well,
we can-
it's just a
okay.
friendly amendment. So
All right, go ahead.
So, since our interim position will be assistant superintendent, I think it's appropriate just to say the assistant superintendent.
Okay. Then I'll amend what I said, and it would be the Deputy Superintendent for Operations as the primary and the Assistant Superintendent as the secondary.
I accept that and I second that as well.
All right, so any discussion from the board on that motion? I think for me, I agree with that, but just because we don't really have anybody right now in that in the future, I don't know exactly how that filling in works, and obviously I think if Dr. Bragan would like to have the assistant superintendent be the primary person filling in, we can always make that change, assuming later, so I'll support that.
But the interim is filling in, right?
I don't understand what you were saying.
I'm saying that right now we have an interim assistant superintendent, correct?
Correct.
So at some point, hopefully we will hire somebody permanently to be the assistant superintendent.
Right, and that was the intent of my amendment, is to say that's going to be a filled position with a permanent person, so it should be not the interim.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand I'm not arguing the interim part.
I wasn't arguing either, I just wanted to make sure we understood what we were all saying.
Okay. All right, can I have a roll call, please, Ms. Drake?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
So I'm having to do it by memory because my screen won't update.
I am used to going last,
You
but
know, and then I'm worried Mr. Chewbacca will get offended that I don't have him last. So Ms. Cass
yes.
and Mr. Chewbacca.
Yes.
I think I got all of you. So in favor.
Motion carries. All
That's
right.
okay. You can do that mix-up thing like you did the last meeting.
All right, schedule meeting dates, times, and locations. Our next item is to set these dates, times, and locations for the year. The meeting calendar provided in board docs is in our notes. Do I have a motion to approve the 2023 meeting calendar as presented?
So move.
Second.
Do I have any discussion? All right, hearing none. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Mic's off, I'm sorry. It's been a while. Are we still planning on having the joint Board of Supervisors meeting on January the 28th?
The 30th.
30th, 28th, 30th? I just wondered, I didn't know if that's why that had not been put on the calendar for January yet. I just wanted to make sure that meeting was still happening and if the date was still what we thought it was going to be.
As of yesterday, there was still discussion.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All right, Ms. Drake, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adopt the revised hiring practices resolution? This year's resolution includes the focus on diversity in our hiring practices.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, adoption of board procedures, codes of ethics, and standards of conduct. Annually, the school board revisits the board procedures, standards of conduct, and code of ethics as noted in policy 1-1.6. Do I have a motion to reaffirm this policy?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. School board norms and protocols. The norms and protocols were adopted in January 2021, just a year ago. Do I have a motion to affirm these protocols?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. The reaffirmation of statement of inclusivity. Do I have a motion to reaffirm the school division's statement of inclusivity? Inclusivity. That is
So
a hard
moved.
word, isn't it?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Adoption of the resolution authorizing the superintendent to settle claims. Do I have a motion to approve a resolution granting authority to the division superintendent to authorize settlement of claims against the school board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right. And I'd like to make an announcement that the MCPS policy manual is available on the MCPS website at mcps.org. Printed copies are available to citizens as needed by contacting the clerk of the board, which is Brenda. And we can help you with that if anybody wants to take a look at our policies. All right. We're now moving on to the honors, awards, and recognitions portion of our meeting. This is the fun part. We're going to start with the student representative reports. Emma Whitaker and Sam Woolsey are here as student representatives tonight. Would you guys like to share reports from your schools?
It's a new year at Blacksburg High School. We have new classes with a new semester, new Bruin blocks. Seniors are looking towards what the new year holds, whether a job, higher education, or something else. And in sports news, we have the cross-country team and the golf team here being recognized for being state champions. Winter sports have started. The Battle of the Bergs is on Friday. Quiz Bowl's VHSL season has started. The A team holds a 5-1 record. And the BHS competition drone team traveled to Dallas, Texas, and placed 6th in the nation in December. The performing arts also finished the year strong. The band auditioned at All District Band, and the event will be held in January. And All District Choir auditions were also held in December, and 24 students were selected from the choir. The band will travel to perform at Carnegie Hall in March, and the choir had one student, Maria Grove, selected to go to the VMEA Honor Choir in Richmond. The band and choir also had successful winter concerts in December. BHS Theater will soon begin preparations for their senior-directed one-acts and their spring musical, Cinderella. Blacksburg is hitting the ground running and looks forward to a great second semester.
Thanks, Sam.
And before I start my reports, I would just like to say I see our volleyball team here, and you guys are getting recognized, and I'm so proud of all of you. We all are, and yeah, you guys worked really hard, and I'm very proud of you guys. So good job. Okay, so we had our first day back of the second semester, and we started new courses that are offered now, which are photography and American Sign Language. We also have an African American history class now, which that's very exciting for the first time. The National Art Honor Society hosted a successful paint night for the community in December, and they're holding another one in February. The band and choir classes held their winter concerts before break, and both groups did amazing. Winter sports are in full swing. The regular season will end in early February for swim and dive, indoor track, girls basketball, and boys basketball. We are looking forward to seeing how far our teams can advance in the playoffs. Our academic teams are about to start their regular season as well, and our NAQT team got moved up to nationals, but we can't go, which is sad, but it's okay. And basketball has competed at several local tournaments. They compete on January 14th at George Wythe, and our MAC teams start their seasons on Tuesday, January 17th. And the Drama Club at Auburn will perform the play Elsewhere on Friday, January 20th at 7 p.m. and Saturday, January 21st at 2 and 7 p.m. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Emma and Samuel. It sounds like there's a lot going on already in the new year. Well, the next thing on our agenda, also one of my favorites, the 2022-2023 Teacher of the Year awards. It's time to celebrate them. Teacher of the Year from each school and the Division Teacher of the Year. Dr. Wickham is going to come up and help us facilitate this.
Members of the board, Mr. Chair and Dr. Bragan. All public and accredited non-public schools are invited to participate in the Virginia Teacher of the Year program to select and to honor teachers who represent the best in teaching in the Commonwealth. The program is open to all teachers in pre-K through grade 12, including school librarians, counselors, and reading specialists. Candidates must be dedicated, knowledgeable, and skilled and plan to continue in an active teaching status. The program provides school divisions the opportunity to recognize outstanding teachers and to focus positive public attention on education and the teaching profession. In the past, the Teacher of the Year was not named until May. The application cycle was adjusted by the VDOE this year. This change permits the selection panel to announce the Regional and Virginia Teachers of the Year in the spring of 2023, which will give the Virginia Teacher of the Year more time to prepare for the national level application process. We are pleased to announce Montgomery County's Teachers of the Year for each school at this time. Joining me will be Mr. Patrick Moran from Horace Mann, who provided our beautiful glass apples for our teachers, and just want to give him a big shout out. Each year we just really appreciate it, and we know how much our teachers appreciate it. Okay, so when I call your name, if you would come up, and we definitely want opportunities for photos. So from Auburn Elementary School, Sherry Hollinsworth, the lead special ed teacher. Bellevue Elementary School, Robin Bibb, second grade teacher. From Christiansburg Primary School, Crystal Fentress, pre-K. From Christiansburg Elementary School, Kelly Bragg, special education. From Eastmont Elementary School, Tiffany Caldwell, pre-K. From Falling Branch Elementary School, Erin Woolwine, kindergarten. From Gilbert Lincoln Elementary School, Cherish Dunnigan, second grade. From Harding Avenue Elementary, Will Holloman, fourth grade. From Kipps Elementary, Lee Stinger, second grade. From Price's Fork Elementary, Deb Hobner, Media Specialist. From Auburn Middle School, Jennifer Bonds, 6th grade Social Studies. Blacksburg Middle School, Sarah Moore, 7th grade English. Christiansburg Middle School, Crystal Smith, Algebra 1 and Geometry. From Shawsville Middle School, Clarissa Wheeler, Reading Specialist. From Auburn High School, Kim Smith, Agriculture. From Blacksburg High School, Cliff Johnson, Special Education. I don't know. From Christiansburg High School, Samuel Inge, Algebra 1. Eastmont High School, Emily Castle, Agriculture. From Montgomery Central, Dina Melvin, Math. Our Division Teacher of the Year will submit a portfolio to the Virginia Department of Education. Regional Teachers of the Year are then selected by a panel representing professional associations and other educational groups. The selection panel convenes in Richmond a second time to interview each of the 8 Regional Teachers of the Year to then choose the Virginia Teacher of the Year. So I asked our principal, Dr. Poff, what are some things that make our Division Teacher of the Year an exceptional teacher? She said, Julie is universally loved by staff, students, parents. Staff and parents know that she's extremely knowledgeable and can help any child with any struggles in reading. Kids just know that she loves them unconditionally and makes reading fun for them. She's a team player, always has a positive attitude, and is willing to do whatever is needed for our students in our school. She is the best of the best. It's my honor to introduce our Montgomery County Public Schools Teacher of the Year, who teaches reading at Margaret Beeks Elementary School, Miss Julie Mundy.
Thank you, Dr. Wickham. Thank you to all of our teachers, to all of those of you who were recognized this way by your peers. I know you guys have all done a great job this year, and I'm sure every year. So we thank you so much, and congratulations. So moving on in our awards, staying in our awards, I should say, and recognitions, we're going to do our January Seniors of the Month. Carl Polly and the other principals will help present.
Thank you, Chair Chewbacca. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. A very special highlight of our board meeting is the recognition of a Senior of the Month from each of our 4 high schools. Photos and leadership profiles are displayed on the screens in the boardroom and will also be on display in the lobby of the central office. Our presentation format provides a snapshot of each senior and a quote from their administrator or teacher who nominated them for this recognition. This evening, we only have 2 of our schools whose students could make it. As you know, our Seniors of the Month are often the busiest, most involved students, and many are not able to make it. Mr. Jones from Christiansburg High School will be presenting January Senior of the Month, but also December Senior of the Month if she is here. And Adam Simpson, principal of Blacksburg High School, will be presenting his Senior of the Month. We'll start with Mr. Simpson, followed by Mr. Jones. Adam?
Good evening, school board members, Dr. Bragan. It is my honor to present Nora Chase as the January Senior of the Month for Blacksburg High School. At this time, I'd like to invite Nora and her family to join me up here. All right, Nora, here's what one of your teachers had to say about you. Nora Chase is a wonderful student to have in class and an example to her peers. She's always very polite and kind to both faculty and other students. As an AP Spanish learner, Nora has taken the optional tools made available to her and not only used them to grasp a better understanding of the material, but she goes above and beyond to truly explore the concepts on a deeper level. She is the epitome of taking ownership for her learning. No one in class works as hard as Nora does, and she keeps a great attitude about it even when the going gets tough. A very talented artist, Nora recently did a presentation on alebrijes, a type of Mexican folk art. Did I say that correctly? Yes. Because she is connected with it so well, her enthusiasm spread to her audience, and it made for a great day in the classroom. Congratulations, Nora.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Chair, Dr. Bragan. We have 2 seniors of the month. I'm not sure if she's here, but Isabel Cromer, is Isabel here tonight? Come on up. Bring your family. I wasn't sure because there were so many people here. Chance to see her.
It's easy to lose people in this crowd.
It's my pleasure to introduce the December Senior of the Month for Christiansburg High School, Isabel Cromer. Of course, the family's here. When asking one of her teachers to describe Izzy, he said, Izzy is an extremely talented and dedicated musician. As color guard captain and then drum major, she has played an instrumental part in the success of our band program over the last few years. She sings beautifully, is one of our best twirlers, and conducts as if she has been having years of training. Izzy's commitment to excellence has been exemplary. She is a fine example to her peers and has earned their respect through her hard work and devotion to the band and school. And as has been mentioned, Izzy is our drum major. She also teaches ballet classes with Little Leapers Dance Studio. So I introduce to you and to everyone, Izzy Cromer. Our January Senior of the Month is Carson Ballard. And would Carson and his family please come forward? When asking one of his teachers to describe Carson, he said, "Carson is an outstanding young man and student athlete for Christiansburg High School. I've been proud of him as I've observed his progress and success over the last 4 years in both the classroom and on the playing field. He is respectful, a hard worker, a leader with great presence in the classroom, an ultimate team player, and always handles himself with class. He's well liked, a good friend to all. He brings out the best in himself and others, and is a true example of what a student of the month should be. He plans to attend Virginia Tech and major in sports media and analytics. He has also been a member, as you heard, of our football team, National Honor Society, as well as Eagle Scout Troop of 141, and also a Heisman High School scholarship winner for CHS. So once again, I introduce to you Carson Ballard and his family.
All right, I think that's it for today, for this week's Seniors of the Month, right? We're going to move on to the VHSL Athletics State Champion recognitions. And tonight we're going to recognize VHSL State Champions for 2021, 2022, and 2023.
Correct.
And Mark Husband is here to help us out with that.
Good evening, Chair Shabaka, school board members, Dr. Bragan. We appreciate the opportunity to recognize student athletes and coaches that won VHSL state championships over the past 2+ years, especially when in-person recognitions were not possible due to COVID restrictions. Tonight, we will recognize state champions from Auburn High School and Eastern Montgomery High School from the 2020-2021 school year and the 2021-2022 school year. We will also recognize fall 2022 state champions from Auburn High School and Blacksburg High School. In February, we will come back and recognize the 2020-2021 school year and 2021-2022 state champions from Blacksburg High School and Christiansburg High School. I would like to introduce Auburn High School Athletic Director Paul Dominy to recognize the Auburn High School state champions over the prior 2 school years.
It's nice to be back. Just to set an historical framework for what we're about to see, Auburn High School has won 41 team state championships in the history of the school. 37 of those have been in the last 10 years, and as you'll see, 10 of those were in the last 2. Okay. Volleyball 2020 state champion. This was a back-to-back championship following a short turnaround following the COVID season. This was also an undefeated team for their season. The boys outdoor track team in 2021 was Auburn's 5th state championship in boys track and field, but it was their first one in 4 years. Haley Hollins. Haley Hollins won the shot put championship in 2021. It was her first state championship, and this came in her junior year. Daniel Graham won the 110 hurdles in 2021. It was his junior year also. The baseball team won their 3rd state championship in 5 years in 2021. All of those state championships in odd-numbered years, which bodes well for this spring. Softball, 2021 state championship. This was softball's 2nd state championship in program history. Girls tennis 2021. This was tennis's 3rd consecutive state championship when you take out the COVID year when championships weren't held. This was also an undefeated team for their state championship. This team won the tennis Triple Crown by winning the team state championship, Sarah Nichols won the singles state championship, and Sarah Nichols teamed with Anna McGuire for the doubles state championship that year. Volleyball 2021. This volleyball team finished an undefeated season with a state record 76-game winning streak for their third consecutive state championship. And we'll hear more from them later. Boys basketball 2022. This was the third state championship in boys basketball history for Auburn, their second in 3 years. And in some ways, this one's a little bit special because this was the sport Auburn won their first ever state championship in. Girls tennis 2022. This was their fourth consecutive state championship for the program. Softball 2022. This was back-to-back titles. And in their state championship run, they allowed 1 hit total in the 3 state playoff games. Girls outdoor track and field 22. This was the 4th state championship for girls track and field, but their first since 2018. Haley Hollins showed her dominance in the shot put by winning both the indoor and outdoor shot put championships her senior year. Andy Vaughn won an event that Auburn has become known for, the pole vault, and he was Auburn's 3rd individual state champion in that event. Casey Rosenbaum ran a personal best by nearly 1 minute the day of the state championship on a very hot day to win the 3,200 meters. Daniel Graham defended his state championship in the 110 hurdles. Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce Principal of Eastern Montgomery High School, Mr. Todd Lewis, to recognize the Eastmont High School state champions.
Good evening, members of the board. Mr. Chair, Dr. Bregan, it's my honor to be here this evening to recognize the Eastern Montgomery High School state champions from the previous 2 years. First up, I'd like to recognize the 2021 girls soccer team. This was the first state championship of any sort for Eastern Montgomery High School, Shawsville High School, on back in any team sport. This was a dominant team, had an undefeated record of 14-0. They outscored opponents that year by a margin of 118 goals to 1 during the course of the season. In district recognitions, they had 11 first-team players, had the Player of the Year, who was Ellie Underwood, and the Coach of the Year, Whitney Shaver. You'll see the next year some familiar faces because they did repeat. Repeated in 2022, again undefeated with a record of 18-0, outscored opponents 132-7 that year, had 12 first-team players for the district, 11 first-team players for the region, and had 9 all-state first-team players, including the Player of the Year, Maddie Bruce, and the Coach of the Year, Whitney Shaver again. We'd also like to recognize the high jump champion from 2021, Mr. Cody Roop. As you see here, he executed a jump of personal best, 6 feet 2 inches, and he is now participating in track and field at Roanoke College. Very, very proud of these young athletes. Thank you very much.
That's okay, you can just go back the other way, or the agenda. Thanks. At this time, we would like to recognize in person some of our champions from this past fall VHSL season. In order to do so, first, I'd like to welcome back Paul Dominy to recognize the state champion Auburn High School volleyball team.
I'm very pleased to be stepping aside with this recognition and handing the microphone over to our head volleyball coach, Sherry Millirons.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Bragan. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to recognize these young athletes. I would like to first introduce each of the players. This year, our seniors were Kelsey Grossclose, Madison Ketterer, Madeline Laverne, Avery Zuckerwar. Our juniors, Ava Garland, Stacy Lewis, and Kristen Pack. Sophomores, Brielle Underwood, Megan Ernest, and Gretchen Surface. She's unable to be here tonight. And our freshmen, JC Morrill and Leah Wimmer. And our assistant coach, Ben Kratz. So this was not a typical path that we traveled to win a state championship. This season, we went 23-8. And we faced a lot of up and downs during our season. Most of our starting lineup were playing new positions, and we had an injury that sidelined one of our starters for 5 weeks. In mid-October, we finished up our regular season by losing our last 3 regular season matches. And at this point, a state title didn't look very promising for us. But heading into the pro season, things were looking better. But then we suffered a lot of illnesses. We had every virus out there except for COVID. But players persevered. And we played our best volleyball in our postseason. And the last match that we lost of those 8 was in the district tournament. And it was our 3rd time that we lost to Giles. And it was a close 5-set match. Many people thought that Giles was picked to win the state championship. But 10 days later, we faced Giles again in the region championship, and we beat them in 4 sets. The following week, we faced them again in the state semifinals, where we beat them in 3 sets. And that set up a rematch with Rappahannock High School in the state championship match. We'd faced Rappahannock early in September, and we lost to them in 5. This time, we beat them in 4 sets for the state championship. So you can see we improved a lot from the beginning to the end of our season, and I think we learned a lot of life lessons along the way. But with these girls, I'm so proud of them because no matter what we were faced with, they never gave up. So thank you again for allowing me to recognize these young athletes. They're great girls and they're great student athletes.
Next, to help us recognize some additional state champions from Blacksburg High School is Blacksburg High School Principal Adam Simpson.
Hello again, everybody. It's my honor to recognize state championship golf coach, Mr. Rick Maddox, who I asked to join me up here. Coach Maddox started working at BHS in 1999 as a special education aide before becoming a social studies teacher and a golf coach. He's also a BHS graduate himself. Mr. Maddox recently retired from teaching in December, and while we already miss him in the classroom, we're grateful he will be still coaching our golf team. Since 2006, Coach Maddox has led the BHS golf team to 7 state championships, including back-to-back titles in the past 2 seasons. At this time, I'd like to invite Coach Maddox to share about this year's team.
Yeah, thank you for those kind words. I actually retired in December so I could stay on as the golf coach. If I'd have retired in May, I couldn't have done it. So, I may be too old to teach, but I'm not too old to golf these fine young athletes. First, I'd like to say thank you all for having us here tonight and recognizing these student athletes. The Montgomery County School Board does a lot for athletes, as is indicative of all these awards we're going to be seeing tonight. And, without your support, we couldn't have the success that we've been seeing. And I'd like to send a special shout out to Montgomery County Transportation, who gets us to where we need to go all the time, on time. So Eddie and his staff does a great job for us. I'd also like to thank Mr. Simpson and our athletic director, Mr. Lyle, they also give a lot of support. And I also like to shout out to Blacksburg Country Club. They have the finest golf facilities around here, and the practice facility there is exceptional. The course is exceptional. So without that, we wouldn't be as successful as we have been. But the main thing is, you can be real successful, but if you don't have the players, then it's very difficult. And since 2016, we've either finished first or second in the state tournament every year. And it's due to the individuals like I'm going to introduce here now. We've got Major Ewing, Pierce Campbell, Samantha Skinner, Jake Albert, Connor Catterson, and Sean Ruin. These were actually our starting six this year, and each one of them was critical to our success. We rolled through the River Ridge District pretty easily, had a tough time at the regions because Jefferson Forest set up their course to try to beat us, but they weren't able to do that. And then we went up to Stonehenge in Richmond and survived a pretty tough task. But each one of these student athletes here were instrumental in our victory this year, and I'm super proud of them. We lose Samantha and Sean this year. They're both seniors, but we've got a pretty young team, and we've got some young athletes coming up that we think can fill their large shoes. But again, it's an honor for us to be here tonight, and we thank you for allowing us this time to be recognized.
It is also my honor to introduce to you the state championship coach for both the boys and girls cross-country teams, Mr. Stephen Howard. Coach Howard is a science teacher at Christiansburg Middle School and joined our coaching staff at BHS 2 years ago. He coaches our indoor-outdoor track teams along with boys and girls cross-country teams. He's been an excellent addition to our athletic program at BHS. This year, he led both boys and girls cross-country teams to state championships and was named Virginia Coach of the Year by milestat.com. In addition, he has an excellent rapport with his athletes and is one of the most genuinely positive people I know. This time, I would like to invite Coach Howard up to share about both of his state championship teams.
For some reason, I thought I'd be facing that way. I don't know. So, my name is Stephen Howard. I'm the head coach of the Blacksburg High School cross-country and track teams. I'm joined tonight by my lovely wife, Hannah, and my assistant coaches, Mac Bradbury and Chad Cox. I'd like to thank the Montgomery County School Board for taking the time to acknowledge the impressive athletic accomplishments of all the teams that join us here tonight. Winning a state championship is no easy feat. As any of the coaches here tonight will attest, it takes hard work, dedication, and perseverance to achieve this level of success. I stand here tonight proud to say that both the Blacksburg High School girls and boys cross-country teams have shown that they are not afraid to put in the work required to excel. Last year, our track season ended on June 4th. Cross-country practice started on June 6th. For 6 days a week since June 6th, they've run up mountains, done pool workouts, morning runs, tempo workouts, speed workouts, 60-mile weeks, drills, weightlifting. Through it all, they grew closer and stronger as a team. I know I can speak on behalf of the team and the other coaches when I say that what we have accomplished would not have been possible without the support from our families and community. So thank you to our parents and community of Blacksburg. I want to start by honoring our boys cross-country team. The boys had a terrific season from start to finish. During the course of the season, they attended the third largest meet in the state in Salem and won. They also attended the Milestat Invitational in Richmond, the second largest meet in the state, and won. On September 24th, they attended the largest high school cross-country race that has ever been run on Virginia soil with nearly 650 varsity runners and won. A website predicted that at this large meet, a different team would win. Upon reading that prediction, a coach on our team was quoted as saying, "If so-and-so team beats us, I will eat a sock." That may or may not have been me. As a team, the boys were voted on as the best team in the state across both genders and all classifications. This is the best running team in the state. The boys team was led by 3 seniors, Zach Davis, Jonas Roach, and Connor Rutherford, who placed 10th, 9th, and 1st, respectively, at the Class 4 state championship. In addition to being the individual state cross-country champion, Connor Rutherford broke the 15-year standing Blacksburg school record in the 5K with a time of 14:59. Connor was interviewed on camera after winning the state meet and asked how it felt to be a state champion. To this, he replied, "It feels great, but I'm just glad that my team is here with me, and my only hope is that we are all champions at the end of the day." That is exactly how the day ended. I would like to present to you this year's Class 4 Virginia State Champion Boys Cross Country Team, the Blacksburg High School Bruins boys team. It does feel a little weird separating these teams because we all practice together. So the boys push the girls and the girls push the boys. I do want to take time to honor our girls cross country team. Just like the boys team, the girls had many fantastic performances throughout our season. But I'd first like to point out some statistics that show the legacy of the girls program. This was the 41st time the state cross country meet has occurred. And of those 41 championships, the Blacksburg girls have attended 41 times. In comparison with all other Virginia classifications and genders, the team that has the next most appearances at a state meet is 27, and third most appearances at 20. Not only that, but leading into the season, Blacksburg had the statistic of finishing in the top 2 teams for the past 17 years in a row. As I started the season, I looked at all the returning women runners in the state and I thought, uh-oh, the streak's in trouble. They sat down as a team in the summer and wrote down that their goal was to be state champions, and they got to work. At one point, a critic projected us to not advance out of the region. When we won the region against the top team in the state, that critic then projected us to win the state meet. However, we knew it was going to be difficult. On the night before the meet, we had a team meeting, and I told the girls that we could finish anywhere from 1st to 4th with the crazy strength of the field of Class 4, easily the deepest class in the state of Virginia. I predicted that we would win with 101 points above second place at 105 points, but that it would be a toss-up between 4 teams. It would all depend on the day's performance and who had the most strength from their training. The team was led by junior Reese Bradbury, who placed 10th overall to earn all-state honors. 400 meters into the race, our number 4 and 5 girls were in 85th and 86th place in a field of 101 runners. Not necessarily where you want to be to win a state title. Tuscarora, one of the teams projected to win the state meet, was handily winning halfway through the race. So much so that another coach walked over to me, patted me on the shoulder, and said, "I know who's winning this race, coach." And I thought to myself, these girls didn't train for 1.5 miles, they trained for 3.1 miles. Those 2 girls, who were in 85th and 86th place, freshman Tess Dickens and senior Mia Farley, passed more than 50 competitors throughout the race to finish 30th and 31st on the hilliest course in the state. The entire team awaited anxiously afterwards for the results, not knowing where we finished as a team, but knowing they had laid it all on the line for a shot at the title. The results were posted, and there it was. State champions, Blacksburg High School, with 101 points over second place with 105 points. I want to present to you this year's Class 4 Virginia State Champion Girls Cross Country Team, the Blacksburg High School Bruins. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
I would just like to say this has been just wonderful. It has been, 2 years, almost 3, since we've been able to congratulate our athletes, and I'm just excited. It may make for a long night, but I'm ready for it. So again, thank you all for showing up and all the hard work that you put in.
Thank you again. All right, at this time, if it's okay with the board, I thought maybe we'd take just a very short 5-minute break just to let people congratulate each other and those who don't want to stay clear out. So.
We go back east. Real estate. It goes every time. I think it's really slow.
All right. You mean to hang around after?
All right, let's get back into it. All right, our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about educational matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Drake will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I'll call each speaker up by name in the order they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board doesn't respond to the speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county where you live. The first speakers are Jocelyn Fraser, and after that, Mark Meyer. Is Jocelyn Fraser here? Okay. Mark Meyer. And after Mark Meyer is Meredith Meyer.
Mark Meyer, Christiansburg, District B. On March 11, you, the board, had a meeting and decided to dismiss me without even calling me in to share my thoughts. I feel that after 6 years of being superintendent in this county, I still deserve due process and at least the opportunity to share my side of what transpired that day. I admittedly lost my temper on March 10 when speaking to Dr. Whitaker about my own child. I sincerely want to apologize for that. I acted in the capacity of an upset parent, not as superintendent, yet you dismissed me without even talking to me. Since you didn't hear some of my thoughts now regarding the issue surrounding my dismissal. As a parent who shares joint legal and physical custody of my child, who I love more than anything, the school should not be allowed to change my child's name without my permission. The reason I was against this change is irrelevant and it's personal. It is protocol in our schools that when this happens with any other issue involving a student who has two parents with joint custody, that either the parents come to a consensus or the courts decide. However, the board felt that it could take my right away as a parent and change my child's name without my permission. Sue, you threatened me in February saying that if I didn't allow my child to change her pronouns, it wouldn't look good for my job. I felt coerced and regretfully agreed to do so. I was not going to do the same with my child's name. I did not give up my rights as a parent when I became superintendent. In March, I requested that I be allowed to write a note of thanks to the students, employees, and parents. You denied me the dignity to do so after 30 years in public education, so I'd like to take this time to thank the MCPS community for giving me a wonderful 6 years as superintendent. I gave you the best that I had and always tried to do what was best for students first. I would like to give a special thanks to some amazing board members, such as Joey Lyons, Guna Karan, current members Jamie, Dana, and Marty. We didn't agree on everything, but you always advocated for students, were on the board for the right reasons, and treated me with dignity and respect. As for Mark, Sue, and Penny, as superintendent, working with you was unbearable. You rarely mentioned students as a basis of your decisions. If we disagreed, you found it acceptable to treat me and others with disrespect. You are not on the board for the right reasons. You're not what's best for the children in this county. I'd like to remind all parents who are listening that if the school board can infringe upon my parental rights as a superintendent, they will certainly do the same to you if given the chance. Let's make some positive changes to this board. I'm excited to announce that I'm going to do my part by running for school board in District B in November. I know that I still have much more to contribute to the MCPS community. Lastly, Dr. Bragan, I sincerely wish you the best.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Next, we have Meredith Meyer, and on deck after that is Stevie Bowman.
Hello, my name is Meredith Meyer and I live in Christiansburg. I'm here today to not only support my husband, but to personally thank the community for all of their support. The past year has been tremendously difficult for our family, but the thing that has helped us move forward has been the support of the community. I want to thank the many people who have stopped me in stores, restaurants, and hiking trails to share not only their shock and sadness over my husband's dismissal, but also appreciation for his leadership. When COVID hit, our dining room table became the command center for finding solutions to problems no superintendent in America had ever dealt with. I watched with pride as my husband organized his team to figure out how to continue to provide instruction, food, and connection to students without the benefit of time or previous experience. And when returning to school became a possibility, even when he faced harsh resistance from some board members, he worked even harder to get Montgomery County Public School students back in the classroom where they belonged. Although we are all far from the spring of 2020 and the tense school board meetings that captured the attention of so many, it is easy to forget what we saw and how we felt. I was proud of my husband and his team's dedication to getting back to the business of educating students. I had a small window into the behind-the-scenes planning that occurred to make schools, buses, and classrooms safe learning spaces. It was quite extraordinary to witness the complex organization of resources, implementation of new procedures, and the out-of-the-box thinking needed to meet the challenge at hand. While I had the opportunity to witness the behind-the-scenes planning for the new reality of COVID and our journey back to normal, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that it was the teachers, the bus drivers, the instructional assistants, coaches, administrators, and staff who got it done day in and day out. In addition to observing the COVID nightmare, as the wife of a superintendent, I was able to witness the many ways Mark positively impacted the school system over the last 6 years. And when people stop me to share their appreciation for his job well done, they often emphasize his presence in each and every school, his accessibility, and the collaborative environment his leadership invoked. My husband is not only a great leader, but he is a creative problem solver with a passion for improving education. I could stand here and list all the programs and opportunities and processes that he enacted for the betterment of our students, teachers, and staff, but I don't have enough time. He has changed this county for the better, and his contributions will not easily be forgotten. The exciting news is that we can now look forward to the contributions he will make as a school board member. Don't forget to vote this November.
Thank you, Mrs. Meyer. All right, Stevie Bowman.
Good evening. My name is Stevie Bowman. I am the chapter chair of Moms for Liberty, and I live in Reiner. I'm going to make this quick tonight. We've been here a long time. I want to start off with just saying what a proud mom I am tonight. As I was sitting there, I was pleasantly surprised to see pictures of my daughter when she won her state championships at Auburn for her softball team. I have to say it was hard to hold back tears, though, because it reminded me of all the things that she is now missing. She should have been on the volleyball team and here tonight to celebrate her state championship. I also wanted to start off and thank Dr. Bragan. Thank you for meeting with me and my husband. We talked about the need for a sexual assault policy in our schools, and I just appreciate you listening and caring and promising to take action. So thank you for that. Tonight, I encourage everyone that is involved in creating the sexual assault policy and in implementing it to make it a top priority this year. I've met with Dr. Johnson, Mr. Garrettson, and Dr. Bragan regarding the policy, and I anticipate that they should have one very soon. So I ask you, the board, tonight, that when that policy reaches you, you will vote to approve that policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. And no clapping, please. Let's keep this moving. And I apologize, I didn't call who was on deck next, and it was Chris Obenchain. So if Chris is here, it is your turn.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Chris Obenchain. I'm a parent from Blacksburg, and I'm here tonight to talk about parents. And I would like to ask you at this first board meeting of the year, as we go into the year and as you have many decisions to make about things that affect our schools, I would ask you as a parent to consider the voices of parents and to listen to parents, and in particular to remember the rights of parents to decide what is best for their children and what is best for their health and their education and their freedom. Parents matter. Parents matter because they're the first teachers of their kids. We parents matter because we're our kids' first coaches. We're our kids' first bus drivers. And we are the first ones who get to see that gleam of excitement in their eye when they discover something new and when they discover the joy of learning. And as I talk to parents, whether they are public school parents, whether they're private school parents, whether they're homeschool parents, what they want is not extreme. A lot of parents want the same things. They want their children to have adequate facilities to learn in. They want their children to be safe at school and to be safe going to and from school. They want their children to be able to go into a library and not be confronted by pornography. They want their children to be taught the fundamentals of education, of literature, of history, of science, and math, to focus on those things. And they want their children, when they're able to achieve something extraordinary, to be able to be recognized for those achievements. Members of the board, parents are not supplemental to education. Parents are fundamental to education. I know that our new superintendent made an effort to meet with parents before he took on this role, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. I would ask you as members of the board not to make that a one-time thing, but to make that part of your policy moving forward as a board. I would encourage you to set up an advisory board for parents on a permanent basis so that this board can have consistent input from parents on all manner of topics that affect our children. And so I ask you as you move forward in the year to think about the parents, think about ways that parents can be involved and how you can listen to their voice in these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Obenchain. Seeing no other speakers signed up, that will be the end of our public address. Moving on to consent items. There's no items to be pulled from the consent agenda. Board members, all items are considered approved on consent. Okay. Financial summary report for October. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call roll?
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin? Yes. Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion passes. Financial summary report. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report?
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Payment of the bills. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call roll?
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham? Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to the business meeting portion of the meeting. First up is the report from our superintendent.
Thank you, Board Chair Chewbacca. First of all, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. It was great seeing all the students and staff return full-time to school this week, although maybe not every student was as enthusiastic as I was when I visited the schools in the morning. But as I go around to the buildings, and I mean this sincerely, and visit with members of our community in each of our communities that make up our division, it's really reassuring to see all the great things that are taking place. Sure, there are things we can improve and make better. Yeah, that's always the case. But coming down here 500 miles from New Jersey and getting to see all the great things that we do, every day I get more, it reaffirms more that I made the right decision. I'm really happy and grateful that I have this opportunity in getting to know our staffs, our students, our community, our parent community. I look forward to working as partners with our parents too, as the gentleman had said earlier. And it's just really invigorating for me to do that, and it's created a great start for the school year for me. I also want to report that we had a great conversation with our local police authorities last Friday. The Christiansburg Police, the Blacksburg Police, as well as the County Sheriff's Office. And I come from a place where we had a good relationship with our local law enforcement. And in today's day and age, especially in light of recent events this week, it's even more important for that line of communication to be constant and open. And I'm grateful for the commitment that we had from those law enforcement agencies, and look forward to moving with them, working with them closely as we move forward. I also want to report over the holiday break, especially on Christmas Eve, I got a phone call that there was water entering one of our elementary schools at Price's Fork. Little did I know that was a bellwether of worse things to come. That continued with Christiansburg High School, as well as Christiansburg Middle School. And I'd love to be able to post that video of Christiansburg Middle School of the fire people coming in and seeing the water. Apparently the sprinkler systems weren't ready for that 0-degree temperature, and some of them broke and burst the pipes. But on a happier note, everybody returned to school on Monday. All the students, Christiansburg Middle School returned on Tuesday, gave us an extra day. And I just would be really remiss if I didn't say some words of praise to our people that were on site. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the days after that, our maintenance and facilities people came, did the hard work during their vacation time away from their families to make sure that our staff and students would be ready to come back on school last week and for students for this week. So I just want to give a really big shout out to those staff members and community members that all took part in that. And they were led by Mr. Chris Lowe, our Director of Facilities, Robbie Johnson, our Custodial Supervisor, and Dr. Annie Whitaker, who's in charge of our operations. Just wanted to say thank you, and you did a great job. That's all I got. Excuse me, Bobby Jones, I said that wrong. Robbie Jones, all right. If I make a mistake again, Ms. Drake, just hit me in the back of the head. And John Sutton.
John Sutton.
All right, and anybody else I missed, I apologize.
Thank you, Dr. Bragan. All right, we're going to move on to the other items. Approval of the secondary program of study. Mr. Pauly is here, or almost here, to answer any questions about the secondary programs of study. Does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the secondary program of study?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions for Mr. Pauly? All right, seeing none. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion passes. The fiscal year 2023-24 budget calendar, which has been revised. Ms. Miano is here. If anyone has questions regarding the budget calendar, do I have a motion to approve the budget calendar?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. The MCPS transfer policy revision, policy 7-2.4. This is the second reading and approval, so we're voting on this tonight. It was brought forward for the first reading in December. Does anyone wish to make a motion regarding this policy?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin? Yes. Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, elementary reading benchmark. Dr. Wickham is here to present about elementary reading.
The purpose of tonight's presentation is to show the impact of Benchmark Universe on student achievement. As you take a look at those reading SOL scores, both pre-COVID and post-COVID, we began implementing Benchmark in 2021 during our half-day schedules. Last year was truly the first year of implementation. So these are our third grade SOL scores. Again, you can see pre-COVID and post-COVID. Last spring, you could see that our third grade reading scores were above our pre-COVID scores. Fourth grade reading, you can see that we're getting close, certainly closed the gap over last year. And the same is true in fifth grade reading SOL. Next data I want to share with you is PALS data. This is data from the VDOE from across the state. So first takeaway for the state of Virginia, what we saw is that the rate of students scoring below the PALS benchmark decreased from spring 21 to 22, but the 22 below benchmark rate remained higher than that of spring 2019. So keep in mind with PALS, when you look at these, lower percentages are better. This is talking about the percent of students who didn't hit the target. So this is the K2 total below benchmark rates from spring 2019 to 2022. So again, we made tremendous progress over last year, pretty close to where we were pre-COVID. This is broken out by grade level. So you can see that in kindergarten, after having a year of benchmark, our students are even just a tad bit better than where we were. You can see first grade making progress and second grade making progress. The trend tends to be the younger the introduction of phonics, the stronger the scores with PALS. So the second takeaway from the state of Virginia, students who scored below the benchmark in the fall, they also tend to score below the benchmark in the spring. So if you don't make the benchmark in the fall, it's hard to make the benchmark in the spring. So if you take a look at these scores, let me explain those to you. This shows the proportion of students who scored above and below the benchmark in the spring after having scored below the benchmark in the fall. So as an example of how to interpret this graph, if you go all the way over to the right and take a look at that bar of those second grade students who scored below the benchmark in fall 2021, 59% of them went on also to score below the benchmark in spring 2022. 41% went on to score above the benchmark. So these bars all represent students in the fall who were below the benchmark. The light blue shows that in the spring, this is what percent of students were above the benchmark when they tested a second time. So again, when you go and you start comparing these numbers from kindergarten, first grade, second grade, to pre and post COVID, again, you can see growth, making growth. So Virginia, another takeaway from across the state, a large majority of K2 students were at high or medium risk for reading difficulties. And since the onset of the pandemic, the distribution of PALS scores, it's shifted with the proportion of students at high risk for reading difficulties. So to see what that looks like, this shows the percentage of K2 students who are either high risk, meaning below benchmark, medium risk, just below, and then low risk, those students that are above. So if you compare the percentages across all of the categories, you can kind of see what direction we're moving in. So basically, green is good, and the more green we have, the better. So again, if you go back and compare 2021 to 2018, considering how much school our students made, again, we're just making tremendous growth, and obviously a lot of growth over last year. So state of Virginia again, student demographic groups and grade levels showed different levels of growth across the grade levels from 21 to 22. Some key points: students who are Black, Hispanic, economically disadvantaged, English learners, or who have a disability had a below benchmark rate more than 2 times higher on average compared to students who are Asian, white, or non-economically disadvantaged or non-English learners. And these student groups also had below benchmark rates across the state at a minimum of 15 percentage points higher than the overall Virginia rates. So that was the state, and this is the breakdown for MCPS. So this is kindergarten. So again, as you go across all of the groups, if you kind of look for that dark blue bar in each of those sets, it's kind of hard to see, but basically that's where we are. And in kindergarten, our growth for all of our groups has been tremendous. When you look at first grade, a little less growth, still showing growth, working to catch up there. And then second grade. Students with disabilities, that data tends to be skewed, as well as for our English learners across the state, just because some of those students don't take the test or they receive accommodation. So the data is a little skewed for those two groups of students. So I asked a guest to join me tonight. This is Ms. Heather Wade. She is a benchmark expert. I asked her to come and join us so that she could share some current benchmark data with us. She teaches third grade at Christiansburg Elementary School, and from the very beginning, she's worked very diligently to learn the program and to implement it effectively, and she's going to share her most recent benchmark data with you.
Hi. So as Dr. Wickham said, I've been teaching benchmark now for 3 years in third grade. I won't lie, when it was first introduced, I was very hesitant also just because it's a change and everything's different. But as soon as the data started showing up, you could not deny that this was definitely making a difference. And I truly believe it's because we've always taught skills in isolation and we were now spiraling them through the entire year. I am especially excited about the benchmark phonics. The system is really great. It's very aligned to the science of reading. So the kids, since I teach third grade, I have the kindergarten COVID babies. So they had, most of their fundamental skills were taught virtually. So there are large gaps in their phonological awareness. And this is something that Benchmark has been amazing at filling those gaps. If you follow the program, it's been really great. So we use a quick spelling assessment that's part of the Benchmark curriculum. We do it at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. I wanted to show you, I have been in a unique position this year to be able to teach 2 blocks, 1 SPED cluster and 1 gifted cluster. So that's been really awesome for me because I've been able to see both extremes and really dig into this data. As you can see, this is my first class. This is my gifted cluster. The student, obviously their names are not there, but they match up on either side. This is the beginning of the year, and this is the middle of the year. So really, this is the end of August, and this is the end of December. So this is how much growth. You can see that the green is, they have it. The yellow is, they're still progressing, and then the red are gaps that they still have. So you can compare this. Of course, this is my gifted cluster, so a lot of them were very high already to begin with. But this is my SPED cluster data. So you can see all the red on this side and all the green on this side where these gaps are really being filled in. And just by following the benchmark curriculum to fidelity, we are really filling in those gaps. And I believe that this is the most important piece of data because these kids can now read. When you have those phonological awareness skills, you are able to sound out every word that you look at, and it just opens a whole new world for the kids. So this is that data.
What questions do you all have?
I don't necessarily have a question, but I'm just thrilled to see that we are moving forward and closing those gaps with the COVID issues and students not being in the classrooms. So it does show that we are very resilient, and I thank you and other teachers for working so hard.
I did want to say that I have seen the data of my whole school, and across the whole school, the data looks like that. That is not just my data. All the data looks like that. So we are really moving our students, and I'm very proud of that.
Heather, I have been worried about this since it started, and you have just made my heart a happy soul tonight. So I'm thrilled to hear that the benchmark is providing the teachers with the data they need. I was thrilled to see your data. Thrilled to see we're moving in the right direction. I know we've still got long ways to go, but it looks like we are catching up and we are doing great things. So thank you for all you do and for coming and providing this data to us tonight. It was very informative. Thank you.
So Heather, for the students that you had the first year benchmark, they would be 5th graders or 6th graders?
They are 5th graders.
5th graders. And so are we seeing even more progress because they had that
Okay,
initial foundation?
I will tell you, the first year they were virtual.
Sure.
For you know what I mean, for the first whole half. So
Right.
I wasn't able to implement it the same way that I am now. But definitely, I just think them learning the skills, the way Benchmark is, it's in units, and that is where we build their background knowledge. And when they have good background knowledge, their comprehension improves. And the thing about Benchmark is those units go all the way through from kindergarten up to 5th grade. Like unit 1 is animals. So they are learning all of this information. And once you start getting all that background knowledge, I mean, you just keep growing it. And that's where we're missing it a lot in the comprehension. And Benchmark does a great job with that. So the 5th graders were very prepared for what they got the next 2 years because everything is the same. We all follow the same. If you go in any room in our school, the 4th grade is teaching the same lesson, but at a different level pretty much as the 3rd grade and as the 5th grade. And just with different texts and, you know, more in depth, but it's really cool the way it carries all the way through.
And it's, like you said, very circular. So for those students who might have disabilities with long-term or short-term memory,
Yes.
that repetition is what helps them
Yes.
make it solid in their mind and store it.
Yes, before this, when we didn't have a curriculum, we all would teach just isolated, like main idea for 1 week, and then you'd move on to something different. Well, by the end, you know, main idea, they're like, what in the world? But this, it spirals all the way through the whole time. So these kids know that vocabulary. They know those words. And I can tell you the rigor of Benchmark is so good that by the time they take an SOL test, they literally think, wow, that was not hard at all. You know, they took the Benchmark tests are very rigorous. And when they learn to do those higher level thinking skills, by the time they get to the SOL, it's really gives them a peace of mind. I love that about it. I love that they're able to do that.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing that rigor up and the implementation of the curriculum with benchmarks, because before then, as you said, we were all over the place, and our reading scores showed that.
Yes.
So it is just so thrilling to hear
Yes.
that our students are.
Yes, we all set the same expectation. It's high, and if you set that expectation, your students will reach for it. You just have to set it, and I love it that curriculum does it all the way across the board. So we are all doing the same thing, and it's really awesome.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so let me put in a plug. You could go into any elementary school and see fantastic instruction. And I want to tell you, this woman, she volunteered to do professional development for any teacher who was interested in it. But if you want to see some fantastic instruction in reading, stop by Christiansburg Elementary School and go visit Miss Wade's classroom. You can see she makes reading fun. She makes everything fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. Thank you, Ms.
you.
Whitaker, Dr. Whitaker. All right, and on the same topic, Dr. Pauly's here to present about secondary reading.
Though I'd love to accept an honorary doctorate, remember, I'm just Mr. Pauly. You know, I just have to say before I even get into my own presentation, like, that was amazing. I just want to thank Dr. Wickham for that presentation. I'd seen it, but I hadn't heard it presented, and I certainly hadn't heard Heather Wade's words. And so encouraging as a secondary person. I think it was you, Ms. Franklin, who said last time we were together when we were talking about making these presentations, you emphasized the importance of getting it done in elementary school so that it's not a problem, something along those lines, so it's not a problem in secondary schools. And I've believed that my whole career. And you know, several of you said how thrilled you were to hear that presentation. You couldn't be more thrilled than I am, because the better job they do at elementary school, makes our job so much easier at secondary school. I don't think we shouldn't have to, in an ideal world, we shouldn't have to be teaching reading in the secondary schools. So much of what I would have wanted to say has already been taken, because everything that Ms. Wade just spoke to as far as how she was so happy to have a curriculum. I think she said something, and maybe you repeated it, Ms. Franklin, before we had a curriculum, we were all over the place. This is kind of where we were in secondary and why we brought in Study Sync. And I believe it was you, Ms. Parton, who asked for a presentation on Study Sync, but I'm going to start in a little bit of a strange place, but I promise I'm going to get to the Study Sync piece. I want to follow up on what the elementary folks just presented about foundational reading skills and the importance of preparing students for taking these standards-based assessments by providing standards-based instruction. And I think I'd like to answer these three questions that I don't know for sure that you all would be able to answer. We talk a lot about testing. I know Mr. Chewbacca challenged us last time to strike a balance between testing and collecting data to direct instruction, and I certainly understand there's a balance. But it is so important to assess for instruction. But I'd like to answer the question, like, what exactly does the reading SOL test in secondary assess? What does a passing score of 400 actually mean? I think you'll be surprised if you don't already know. And what strategies does Study Sync then provide to address these skill deficits? So I want to start with the idea that foundational reading skills are just as they're listed there: word recognition and decoding, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. My wife told me these things. She's a kindergarten teacher. I hear it all the time from Kelly Rowland. I hear it all the time from Dr. Meyer. I hear it all the time from Dr. Wickham. Don't know why I got stuck on her name. But these are the foundational reading skills that students should have when they come to us. If you look at, and I just showed for demonstration here, just the middle school standards. If you look at the middle school standards, they are really very much the same. You'll see that in the 6th and 7th grade standards particularly, there's an emphasis on word recognition and decoding, if you will. It's just phrased as read and determine the meanings of unfamiliar words. So word recognition, decoding, vocabulary is still very much a part of the secondary standards. Comprehension certainly a part of the secondary standards, but you'll notice on the right, as we get into 8th grade, it's extended vocabulary development, and we start getting into analysis, which is a deeper level of reading. The thing is, if students don't have these foundational reading skills from elementary school, they're not going to be able to do the rigor or meet the level of rigor in secondary school to do those things that you see that begin to emerge in the 8th grade standards. So when I refer tonight to non-readers or struggling readers in secondary, I am referring to secondary students who were not able to pass the SOL test. And as I show here, this is what's tested in the SOL test. These are the standards that are tested: the fluency, the comprehension, the analysis, the vocabulary. All that a 5th grader has to get correct to get a 400 pass is 23 out of 40. That's a little bit less, a little bit more than 50% of the questions correct. In 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it's about 55% of the questions correct on a 45-question reading SOL test. So when I refer to students who in secondary as non-readers or struggling readers, I'm talking about students who couldn't get slightly more than half of these items correct on the SOL test. So when you look at these scores, overall, this is actually K-12, only 76% of our students pass the SOL test. I'm not really big into percentages. I really find a whole lot more meaning in actual numbers, because when you look at the numbers, I think it demonstrates more where the need is. That 76% for secondary represents 556 students in middle school who couldn't pass the reading SOL test. They couldn't get slightly more than half the questions correct on that standards-based assessment. They couldn't get those number of items correct that test basic foundational reading skills. Almost equally disturbing to me is the pass rate of 76%. only 17% are getting pass advanced. So it used to be that we would have so many more pass advanced students, but we're really feeling the hurt from COVID, particularly in students who are in secondary and they're reading, that the pass advanced has even gotten to be so low. I believe it was also Ms. Franklin that mentioned that the key component for reading, or for learning in secondary is reading, is what you, I believe, said something to that effect last time we were together. And as students progress into middle school and high school with the increased rigor, they're going to need what we refer to as advanced reading skills. They're going to need to, I've heard it phrased this way, in elementary school they're learning to read, but in secondary school they're reading to learn. And so we need our students in secondary school to be able to do what's called deep reading and critical reading. Those foundational skills, they have to have them when they come to us. If they don't, we have to spend time in teaching that. I included what it says in the lower right-hand corner there, what do AP exams assess? I threw that in just if you're interested, you can click on that and you'll see that really AP exams also assess those exact same skills just at a much higher level. But that's not what I'm here to speak about. As far as the data that we collect from assessments, it used to be just the SOL assessments, but now with StudySync, we have common assessments in our reading, in our ELA classes in secondary, and we're able to gain some data to make instructional decisions. But in the summertime, principals get data by student and they pore over this to make course placement decisions, whether or not a student needs to be in literacy lab, where they teach foundational reading skills, primarily decoding, or do they need supplemental English in high school, or are they able to take upper level classes? It also helps us to decide what kind of classroom practices, grouping and differentiation and intervention plans need to be in place. When we get data by standard, that is what we talk about in StudySync as far as guiding instruction. This slide shows you an example of what, this is one of our high schools. This shows you an example of the data that we get and have been getting over the years from SOL tests. I blow it up a little bit so that we can see it. This is one of our high schools, last year's 2022 11th graders. When the principal got this information, he would then share this with all of the ELA teachers, because see what it shows is each of the skills, like interpreting the condition, the connotation of a word, division-wide, only 36% of our juniors were able to successfully answer the question aligned to that, and 35% in that school. The M's and the L's, there's some also H, but they're not shown there. That's the level of difficulty. So if you even look at some of these lower level questions, analyzing information to determine unanswered questions, in the division, only 64% of our students are able to do that, and 50 of our juniors last year were able to do that, and 56 at that school were able to do that. So this is what we commonly get. We get it at the end of a school year, and we do use it. We share this information with the next grade ELA teachers so they know what skills students are coming to them with, but we need more than that. In fact, this is kind of a big question to ask the board that we talked about last time in December as well. You know, it's important to align the written, taught, and assessed curriculum. The written curriculum and the assessed curriculum, they're aligned, right? That's the VDOE's SOLs and then the VDOE's SOL tests. But we have to make sure that what's taught is also aligned to those things. So the question is, how often should we assess student progress towards that proficiency in the standards? We do it at the end of the year in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, but then we don't do it again until 11th grade. And of course, if they can't pass it in 11th grade, they can't graduate from high school. So the question is one time at the end of the year a good idea to be assessing students and their standards and their ability to meet those standards? The answer is obviously no. So this is a page out of a larger document that all secondary schools have, and it shows how we expect teachers to do both formative and summative assessment. But and this has been around a couple of years. The newest edition is where the red star is. This year we have incorporated what we call data teams. This is for each group, like all ELA teachers in a building, all science teachers, all social studies teachers, all math teachers, by content, by particular course. get together and analyze common assessment data, determine the proficiency and standards, and then plan explicit instruction accordingly. Math has been doing this for years and years and years, and you can see that's where we are most proficient as a school division. ELA really has just not been able to do that. They haven't had common assessments. StudySync has brought in common assessments for us to take a look at, and they're done periodically throughout the course so that they can make in-course adjustments. We did not have a standardized curriculum across the division in secondary. It was not necessarily aligned with the standards, as evidenced by our test scores. And there were no common assessments for teachers to use to evaluate along the way. So how does StudySync do this? Now, Mike Lean is here. Dr. Meyer is here to answer any specific questions. I do not present myself as an expert on StudySync. But I will tell you these are the things that I know about StudySync. They provide pacing throughout the year. It's not just here's the set of standards for the grade level, get them done by the end of the year, and test them. Instead, it's paced and implementing the standards throughout the course. And they're spiraling back. It's not just a one and done. You don't just get taught the standard one time, and then those who got it, and those who didn't. Things are spiraled back. And most importantly, as I said, it provides this assessment. So does what we're doing with StudySync assessments show us what to do to address gaps? And the answer is absolutely yes. That is the importance of implementing StudySync. Not only does it have countless and a variety of reading material, but it really paces out the standards per grade level, spirals back to make sure students are doing well, and then prepares them to be able to do well on the standards assessment at the end of the year, which we would still use that end of year data to inform the next year. Just a little bit more about StudySync. I think you've heard this before, so I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, that the StudySync curriculum is fully aligned to Virginia standards. You know, they're all over the country, StudySync, but they do make specific alignments to the state that adopts it. So it is specifically aligned to the Virginia standards. All core grade level standards are introduced in the 4 thematic units. There's the spiraling, as I mentioned, and most importantly, all assignments and assessments are directly linked to the standards, and that's what gives us the data to look at to see if we are moving the needle on those students throughout the school year. Again, I believe Dr. Meyer has explained this to you once before, but I will explain it one more time, that StudySync actually has 6 units, but all of the standards are covered in the first 4 units. So in this first year of implementation, we made the decision that we would only expect teachers to do the first 4 units. That would give them approximately 40 days per unit in a year-long course. Teachers are able to explore all the resources, and they are able to select from a variety of aligned resources. The program does not say everyone has to do this book or this text at this time. It is a specific theme that everyone will do at a certain time, but there are lots of resources from which teachers can select. And again, not only I'm speaking of reading, but I wanted to make sure we understood that it also covers all of the writing standards. Some other things about StudySync. We believe it's a balanced approach to assessment. We believe it's reliable and standardized. It has these wonderful assessments, which I want to get into more, both screening, formative, and summative. And again, the data is used to provide direction in future instruction. In fact, what we would call Tier 1 instruction, right? In our Tier 1 instruction, and you'll see the title at the top, that this was a meeting back in November with the Secondary Advisory Committee. Dr. Meyer and I made a presentation to parents and students and teachers and administrators on StudySync back in November, and these are some of the things we told them. We just finished a bunch of academic reviews for some secondary schools, and explicit vocabulary instruction came out as one of the greatest needs to affect change in our ELA classes. It also has an extremely high effect size, if you know what that is, the work of John Hattie. And so StudySync does provide that in our Tier 1 instruction. It has comprehension strategies, opportunities for extended discussions. It provides choice, and intensive and individualized interventions for struggling readers. It really has everything. Perhaps one of the problems is it has so much, it's been a bit overwhelming to some teachers to get into it. There's so much there, I couldn't begin to tell you all of it. I wanted to show you this, and these are not real names. These are fictitious names from the Study Sync manual. Anytime an assessment is given, Study Sync produces what they call their grade book. What it really is just to help teachers identify what skills and standards have been tested and where students are. It's a quick look. It's not a deep analysis, but it's a quick look for teachers to look at to see where students are, the green being students are, fully getting that standard, yellow almost there, and red needing more work. But we want them to definitely get into deeper levels of data, which I'll show you in a second. But that data comes from both benchmark and end of unit assessments. And as it says here, we give those benchmark assessments, we give those 3 times. We give those once at the beginning of the school year. That's a very interesting one. It actually is 65% of 5th grade standards and only 35% of 6th grade standards in 6th grade. That flips 180 when you get to the second benchmark, which I believe we're giving, if not this week, very soon. It becomes only 35% 5th grade standards and 65% 6th grade standards. And it gives that the finger on the pulse of how students are doing towards meeting the standards in ELA. The end of unit assessments are for the teachers to look at to see after each unit, have they covered the standards as they believe they have. The benchmark assessments show how are the students progressing towards completing or meeting all of the standards for the course. I know this one's complicated looking. It's just really a cross-section of some real data that I wanted to show you. This is an example of grade 6 in a school where the Study Sync Benchmark 1 data shows how each student has done on each of the standards. So across the top, you see all of the 6th grade standards. That's not just not the ones that have been taught because it's the beginning of the school year, but the ones that will be taught and the ones that are from 5th grade. And it shows where students are. This gives the baseline data to the teacher so they know what skills students are coming to them with and where they're going to need to emphasize. Red is what you don't want to see. It's kind of like when Heather Wade was showing you. The one on the left had a lot of red, but she was able to show you the one on the right changed to green. This is the one that was on her left, really. So this is showing too much red, and we would hope that it would turn into green and blue by the time we do benchmark 2 and certainly by benchmark 3. So this one is data by student that Study Sync produces. This one is after each of the 4 units, and this is the standard by teacher. And how this is extremely helpful is in this particular school, there are 6 grade English 10 teachers. And on the left show all of the standards. The one above the line are reading standards and the one below are writing standards. It shows all the standards that unit emphasized according to the pacing guide. And it shows that teacher A on standard 10.3b, teacher A's students achieved that standard at a rate of 84%, teacher B 62%, and so on down the line. So this would cause a discussion when doing these data team meetings. They have something to talk about because they have these common assessments they've given. So for example, teacher C and B might say to the others, how did you get your students to do so well on that? What did you do different from me? Because they have a lot of leeway in what they do, but those teachers would want to talk to each other and see, what have you done differently from me? Yes, ma'am. Who said that?
Me.
Oh.
You're making an assumption that teacher A, B, C, D, E, and F have all the same kind of students.
No, I actually know they don't, right, sir.
Because you're saying, well, B and C could say, what did you do? Well, maybe it could be the population, because we all know that some classes, that classes are not equally distributed by abilities. So I think that, yes, numbers are good, but I do think that if that really needs to be taken into consideration, which is always the concern for teachers with SOLs too, because you don't you don't get to choose your students, and you get the students that you get, and you do the best you can with those, and so you can't really compare anyone.
Well, to be sure, there are many factors that influence student achievement, and it's their ability that they come to you with, it's their motivation, it's even their behavior in the classroom, it's the teacher's skill, the teacher's alignment with the standards. It's that and more, but we're talking about at least controlling what standards are being covered and with what fidelity are they being covered. And I still think it would behoove teacher B and C to hear from those other teachers what they did. They may say, well, I did the same thing. Then that's not the factor. So you have to look at multiple factors. This is a factor we've never looked at before. So we're introducing this one.
I guess what I would be doing, if I were you, I'd be saying to teacher C, why do you think you have 25% for this particular one? What do you think? What are your concerns? What problems have you had in the classroom? Instead of saying, and I would just approach it in a whole different way, because knowing that sometimes you can't help the way things are.
To be sure, we want that conversation to be full and complete and rich. Like I was oversimplifying because I'm talking about the data piece, but we want them to speak about all of the factors that have contributed to the student's performance. It's a great conversation starter. And this is for them to get together. They've never looked at common assessment before because there weren't common assessments. They may have been teaching at a different pace. They may have been teaching the standards in a different order, in a different depth, but now they're teaching them at the same pace, at the same time, specified standards, and they can look at their student performance to see how their students are doing and make instructional decisions, as well as they can look at each other and talk with each other about their teaching practices and any other influences on these scores.
So, one of the influences, and you kind of hit on some of those as far as behavior and participation, when we have students at the secondary level whose reading skills are not where they should be, then there are many students who are automatically shutting down because they just can't get it.
Absolutely.
So hearing that there are assessments throughout the process so that we can see where students are at and what we need to do to help get them up there. Because my concern is, and has been, is that these students are leaving us and they're still not able to read at a level that will help make them successful. So until those fifth graders get to middle school where they are already more successful because of the basics they got in elementary, then we're going to start to see what happens at secondary level as far as reading. And I can't wait to see that information.
Yeah, I don't know I forget how many years Benchmark has been in place. Is it three? And they're already seeing those results. I was barely able to contain myself over there watching, because I'm thinking 3 years from now, are we going to be able to hear the same results about secondary using StudySync, which is very similar to Benchmark?
Can I make a comment as a student? Because
Hello.
Please.
Do not, I disagree highly with this. This is, I feel like StudySync is not helping the students, it's holding them back. And I feel like with StudySync, you have come in and disrespected the teachers and their teaching, because teachers will know their students better than a machine. My teacher will know what I'm struggling with more than this computer will tell me. And I feel like it is really, for a lack of a better term, I feel like you are looking down on us as we cannot understand. And I know you said they had a lot of selection, but no, because the selections they have are not challenging. They're very cookie cutter, and I think you're trying to cater to the parents and what everyone wants to be like, all innocent and all this, and you're not reading the stuff that will help you grow. You are not reading like the hard-hitting stuff or like the stuff that is going to help you like engage your critical thinking. You are reading the same cookie cutter stuff over and over. And yeah, I don't want to hear kids read something like not even The Giver anymore, because that's too much, but like stuff like that. And like we can't read like Angels in America anymore on StudySync because that's too graphic, and it's personally been one of my favorite books. Or The Bluest Eye, because that deals with racism, God forbid, and all this. And that was a very powerful book to read. But if I was in a class where I had to use StudySync, I feel like I would be dumbed down. Not saying the kids that this work for are there. That's some kids this works for, and that's great, and you can implement that in a way. But trying to implement it for every student across the board, thinking all the students are on the same level, is just disrespectful to the teachers, who, first off, don't get enough respect, especially ELA teachers. And that makes me extremely sad as a student to see my dearly beloved teachers be disrespected. And then disrespectful to students because we're seen as too immature. I was talking to Sam earlier, and I'm 18. I do not want to be coddled by the school system into thinking I can't read curse words or something that's offensive. Like, I'm 18, I have my mind, I have been prepared for critical thinking, which, that's not a great term because, but I just feel like StudySync is the worst thing you can do. But on the other hand, Benchmark, I feel like it is a great thing because they are very small children, and I have worked with very small children, and that is a great idea. Benchmark is doing great, and I think you all should keep that in place. StudySync is not.
So Emma,
Can I just comment on what Emma said? You just said better than I've said over the last, I don't know how many meetings about StudySync and my concerns as a former English teacher. And I was writing notes here as Mr. Pauly was talking about, so where do teachers have the ability to be creative? The ability to create a curriculum that's a fit for their students and their interests. It feels kind of robotic, but you brought it together in a much better way.
Well, I think we have to be clear that teachers don't create curriculum. The state creates the curriculum.
But teachers take the standards and they create a curriculum for their classroom to teach to those standards.
Yes, they create lessons and select materials, and they absolutely still have that freedom. Even Dr. Bragan, right when he got here, allowed ELA teachers to select novels from outside of StudySync. That's not free reign to pick whatever you want, because we still have other policies that guide those selections, not the least of which is our new 6-5.9. It has to meet the requirements of sexually explicit content.
And I understand that, but what you're saying, Mr. Pauly, is that this has a wealth of reading materials, a variety of. But what I'm hearing from teachers and students is that that's not quite accurate. That the picture that you're providing of StudySync is maybe a lot better than what it really does offer.
I would encourage you to do as Mr. Hudson and Ms. Graham did, and come and meet with Michaeline Meyer and take a look at the resources that are.
Well, I've met with teachers and looked at resources, so I think I got an idea.
Make another comment. Speaking of like the sexually explicit thing, I saw that form, and just saying as a AP senior student who is in a sophomore college level, I am highly offended that all of this is being seen as sexual in nature. The word anything, Love, Simon, which is an amazing book that I read freshman year, may not be approved because it has homosexuality in it, which I feel like is, because as me and Sam read every meeting, our goals are inclusivity and acceptance in our school, and you putting that as sexually explicit is offensive to many different people. And it also just makes it feel like I am 5 years old and having to walk a tightrope between what I can and cannot read. I am 18. I have been raised by my grandparents. I have been taught things. I have seen things. And I am old enough to be able to comprehend stuff And I understand that some parents might not want their kids to read it, but it gets to a point where parents cannot shield their kids anymore, and this is good for their thinking, and they're going to be exposed to it in college, and you can't go to your parents and cry about it.
So I believe we're conflating two different issues here. And
But I can go.
And I don't.
No, I know.
And I don't know if Dr. Bragan
Hang on,
wants me to get
let's
into
talk
this.
one at a time.
The fur, yeah.
I think
Where you need to.
I think it's fine. I mean, I think what
I'm
what
happy to
Carl-
answer.
I think look, I will say that I don't want to discourage you from speaking and giving us input. It's been so far this school year has been great between you, Mercurius, Sam, Jenna. I feel like the student reps are really bringing their opinions and their input to the table, their voices to the table, and that's exactly why we want to have you guys here. So I appreciate that. But I do agree, and your point on Study Sync is well taken. The topic on the sexually explicit thing, I think, is a little bit of a different thing, so we may not want to venture too far into that one right now, but we can always put it on the agenda to talk about it at a different time. So I don't want to cut off the discussion, though.
The amount of selection that we have, or the teachers are privy to, and the selection process and identifying items as sexually explicit are really not what I was speaking to today. None of those things. This was to sticking to the standards as you teach. I'd be happy, Emma, if you'd like to reach out to me, or I'll come visit you at Auburn High School if you have a free period, and I'll talk with you about it.
So Chair Chewbacca, I'm going to have to use my germane at this point because the discussion has gotten into a topic that Mr. Pauly was not discussing.
Fine.
So to keep the board on track and us discussing what we were here to what he's presenting, I'd say I'd like to direct you to direct the board to let Mr. Pauly finish. And if they want to talk
finished.
about the curriculum itself, that's one thing. And if we want to bring the other up in
Yeah, I
an
think
agenda
he-
item, we can do that at a
Sorry,
later
he
date.
brought up the questions. I thought we were just kind of in a discussion period right now, so I was letting people discuss. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything about this, have any questions for Carl?
And I just want to be clear,
Any
I'm
other-
perfectly able to answer those questions, but it's not the time.
Yeah, yes. Understood. I'll make the comment that, I have seen, to Emma's point, I have seen, I'm so glad that we have student reps that we can hear directly from them, but I've heard some of those same things from my own kids, and it's nice that I don't have to sit here and say, well, my kid said this, that you can hear it from another kid, but I have heard that a lot from other kids and whatnot. I also think the way that we're doing Study Sync maybe is slightly changing. I mean, certainly, I think last fall, maybe, we weren't allowing other novels and things to be used. I think that part of, what we agreed to as a board is to kind of give Dr. Bragan some time to look through things and assess things and see how we move forward in a positive way. So, I've heard from many teachers, even last fall, a lot of the teachers said, this is actually, some people were like, this is terrible, but some people were like, this is actually a good program as a supplement, or as, as long as I can supplement to it, or something like that. So for me, I feel like it's not me that you have to get on board. It's teachers, and it's, and it's, your bosses, I guess.
Well, I just want to go on record as saying, related to this, as long as teachers stick with the unit theme and cover the SOLs, the standards that are aligned to that, to prepare students to take the same assessment at the end that all the other students are going to take, they have the ability to choose those materials and the manner in which they teach them. It's difficult for me to understand, it's difficult for me to hear that there are still folks who believe this is killing teacher creativity. I'd like to explore that more, because that's not how I see the implementation of Study Sync.
Mr. Pauly, when they, when are these assessments done? Like how do they, because it sounds like there's a lot of assessments being done. So I'm wondering how much time that takes out of the actual instructional time.
I believe and Mike Lean could come up here and help me answer this specifically, but I know that we've given schools latitude to do it different ways. We have one middle school who I know goes on like a testing schedule and does it school-wide, and I don't know, is it a 2-hour test?
Yeah, like a 2-hour delay or
Yeah,
something.
they go on like a 2-hour delay schedule, but that was their.
So that means we're actually, they're getting less instructional time to do assessment.
Assessment for a purpose, yes. I think it's a very important purpose, as our data has shown. Again, we have students who aren't getting half right on the standards, and it's just basics. It's the basic foundational reading skills.
So this is new. We're working through it. But for me, the bottom line is we have students who are not reading at the level they should, so that to help them be as successful as they can when they walk out of our buildings. We do have students at different levels, and we're going to figure that piece out, how we make sure we're meeting everyone's needs, but we need to make sure all of our students are able to read when they walk across the stage in Montgomery County.
Yes, ma'am, and even our most successful students, as this slide showed, we only have 17% of our students got past advanced. I don't have the data with me, but I know that's really much lower than it has been before. So all students are suffering. Of course, I'm most concerned about the students who failed, but even the students, the lower number of past advanced is concerning.
And, even with putting COVID in the mix with that, before then, our reading scores weren't where they needed to be.
They were not.
Okay. I don't want to cut off discussion, but want to keep moving things forward too. If it's okay with everybody, I think we can move on to the next update, and that's going to be the staffing update.
Thank you, Carl, since
Yeah,
I
thanks,
had
Paul.
been the one that asked for that presentation. Thank you for that.
Mr. Knott is here to give us a staffing update.
Good evening, and I'm here to give you your monthly staffing update. Currently, we have the vacancies that you see here. I have updated the presentation that I'm showing you tonight is an update from what was in your packet from last Thursday to give you up-to-date numbers as of today. We will be conducting interviews the week of the 16th for our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. We are accepting applications for all of the positions you see there. We have a CTE teacher at BMS, an English teacher at BHS, a French teacher that is split between those three schools, BMS, AHS, and BHS. The 2 part-time gifted teacher positions, a music teacher that is split between Auburn Middle School and CMS, and then 3 reading specialists at CMS, EMES, and then 1 that is split between HS and SMS. We have total of 2 special education teachers, 1 full-time at AMS, and then 2 part-times at CPS and Margaret Beeks Elementary School. We have 2 bus drivers, 2 6.5 hour bus drivers that we are looking to fill and accepting applications, 2 bus aides, 2 instructional aides at EMES, 6 lunch recess aides, 1 at CES, 3 at EMES, 1 at Gilbert Lincoln, and 1 at Price's Fork Elementary. And then we have a .45 lunch or recess aid. The school uses it how they see fit, and that's at CES. And then we have 7 special education aides at the schools listed there.
Mr. Knott, could you just go back for a second?
Yes, ma'am.
So 3 spec ed aides at BMS,
Yes, ma'am.
that's a pretty big number to be missing. How are they filling that gap?
How are they? They are adjusting aid schedules and working with the teachers and helping. The teachers are helping as well. And I know that Mr. Bird is working with spec ed towards filling those. We have a carpenter, 2 HVAC technicians in facilities, And then we have 7.5 custodians. 2 of those are in the hiring process. We're waiting on background checks now for 2 of those to come back. And then we do have a floater nurse. We have 2 floater nurses in the county, and they kind of fill in where needed over the course of the year. And one of those moved into a school as opposed to the floater position. So now we need to fill that floater position. We still just have 2 athletic trainers at CHS and at EMHS. And I know that in budget conversations coming up, we're going to, Mr. Husband has put in the budget to request 4 full-time trainers where they're on our staff and not partnering with VCOM. And we'll see what happens in the budget process as we continue to work towards filling those positions. And then I have an extra slide tonight, and this is just a little bit of a plug. Saturday, February 4th, we're going to be hosting Interview Day here at the school board office from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We'll be here at the school board office. We're going to be interviewing for teacher positions, administrator positions for next school year. And anyone that is interested in working in MCPS can either email us at hrd@mcps.org or call us at that number and that extension, and we are happy to schedule them for an interview. We are doing in-person interviews, and we already have several Zoom interviews where I know we've got one person from Las Vegas who's moving here next year and is a teacher and wants to come work for us. And so they're going to be doing a Zoom interview with us that day. Questions for me?
If no one has one, I'd like to start. Mr. Knott, you and I have been talked about going back to the athletic trainers. We've had several discussions on that. I think most of the board knows my feelings about how I feel about the safety of our students. That's always been a big thing that I ran my campaign on, and I'm still very heartfelt about that today. So not only do I care about them in the classroom, but I feel just as strongly as I do with them participating in our sports events. In light of the tragedy that happened with the NFL with Damar Hamlin, which was an awful thing, we have had some issues here locally. They haven't been recent. We had a boy in Pulaski County who played baseball who kind of had the same issue happen, and of course he did not pull through, tragedy. And we've had another person from our community at one time who was an RN who volunteered as a trainer years back for Auburn football team. And there was an incident at a game where an Auburn player had a head and neck injury, and the injury caused a rupture in the artery in the mouth. And had she not been present to recognize and apply the pressure immediately, as the EMS and an ER doc said to her and to the school, the player would have died immediately. So this is huge for me, and I know we're under contract, and I know you and I have had discussions, but we have had professionals say this can happen in young children, this can happen to anyone. I don't want to wait. I don't want something to happen here first. I would like, if the board is willing to put this as a agenda topic for our next meeting in January at the business meeting. I would like to see what resources we can pull from in their community. I know I've had doctors reach out to me. Businesses say that they are interested in helping. Again, I know this ties back to the budget. Possibly we could get volunteers. That would be great as well. But not only the people and the trained people, but we need the medical devices. We need the defibrillators. They are what?
We have the defibrillators.
We have the defibrillators.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have those right there for someone to use it if something happens?
During football, there's a defibrillator on the field, and during indoor sports, during the wintertime, The defibrillators are right there outside of the gym, or they're with the trainer. There could be one with the trainer or the team there, but yes, we do have the defibrillators.
So if we don't have the trainer, my concern is, do we have someone on the team who could be trained, or do we have someone? And I worry about baseball and softball too, because I have not seen those. They could be there,
Right.
but I have not seen those available for those two sports.
And I can't say for sure that they are there. I can say for sure that if there is a trainer there, the defibrillator is with the trainer.
Okay.
Our teachers are trained in CPR. They have to,
They do train, but that they don't have to keep that certification up between recertifications. So they can recertify one time and then not recertify the 2 years later. So I would change that to some are and some aren't.
okay, thank you.
That might be something we might want to look at as a mandatory course for our students. I think that would be a great thing. That's a whole nother topic. So, but what I would personally like to just personally would be if the board would be interested in adding this as an agenda item for discussion at our next meeting in January.
Bring it up under new business? It doesn't matter, but yeah.
No, since he's talking about it, I think I checked with Ms. Drake, and I can bring this up as a topic now, since it's being discussed.
I do think it's something I thought about, of course, after the Hamlin incident, so I don't mind talking about it. I'd be fine
I think
with it
that
if
probably
other
went
board
through all
members
of our
are.
heads.
Yeah. Do I have at least 4 people who are in agreement that, okay, all right, so we'll put that on.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Knott.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I have us talking about it, I guess I see that as, is that our role, or is that Dr. Briggin's role to figure out how to make sure that we have the right people in the right positions? I mean, what are we going to
I've expressed my concern to Dr. Bragan,
Okay.
and we've talked about it.
Okay.
I just want to bring it up for discussion because I think it's an important topic that we need to get moving on.
Well, I think would be neat to just understand exactly who's at the games. You know, what football games does our rescue teams come to? Because I know I was at an 8th grade game last year, and we had a broken leg. So, it's just and I'm kind of going, okay, who's here, who's helping? Who do we need to contact anyone? And they know what they're doing, but it's just nice for us to have some information to know these are the people that are at games or should be. This is the equipment that is here at each game. I would like to know those things too, without diving into a tremendous amount of work to, provide that.
Board Chair, with your permission, for the next meeting, perhaps we can get that information for the board. How many sporting events we have on average per school, per year, per season, how many are covered by a trainer, and then what other options we have when they're not covered. What can we do to make sure our student safety and security is taken care of? We've talked about this as a central office staff. I know Ms. Parton, we talked about it too, especially in light of the recent events in the NFL. It's a concern. And I think we should get all the information and then see what our options are moving forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that.
We'll put that together for the
That
next meeting.
seems to be the consensus of the board, so as I look around. Yep, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. How are we with subs and coverage?
So the last 2 days have been great. Yesterday, we were at 100%, and today we're at 96%. Right before Christmas, we were seeing some illness, and we were down in the 80s. We had 3 days that week. We were in the 80s those 3 days. The week prior to that, we had 1 day in the 70s. But we've been averaging right around 80, 82 most recently. And I've talked to 2 different substitute providing companies here recently that offer the software package that like Frontline that we use, just seeing what else is out there besides Frontline. And when I tell them what our numbers are and I show them our numbers, both companies have told me they don't know that they can guarantee that we're going to increase our numbers of subs for teachers. Where they think they can help us might be with our aides. but they're not even sure they can do that. Our numbers are pretty good from an average standpoint from across the country as far as fill rates go. So I feel good about where we are based on that information that the two companies have shared with me. But we always want to try to find more subs, more ways to get subs in. We have a sub orientation tomorrow, and I believe we've got 22 new people coming in that want to be subs for us tomorrow for sub orientation.
So are you talking about outside agencies feeding?
I'm talking about software companies that offer programs to help us manage our subs.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about outsourcing or anything like
Right.
that. I'm just talking about the software companies that provide substitute management systems. Because there's some new things out there now that some companies have mobile apps or mobile applications for phones that both teachers, administrators, and substitutes can use. Ours does not have that right now. It's got one for substitutes, but not for administrators and teachers that they can use.
And I think it's important to add that our permanent subs that we have at our schools have really made a huge difference.
I do agree with that.
That was a very good decision.
It was a good idea that we had, and I can't, Amanda Widener, Dr. Widener, she works to ensure that, you know, we have subs there. One of the problems we do have there, though, is a lot of our permanent subs that we have hired have now become teachers with us. You know, so we're having to.
That's
a good situation, but now we're having to fill another, you know, permanent sub, school site sub.
Right. So with our lunch aides, and because we know our aides are where we have lots of issues trying to fill folks. What are we doing? Because you all got very creative with the bus drivers in making permanent positions so people could get benefits. And those are some of the things that we hear from these folks who are key in making sure the schools are running. So when we go into this budget cycle, I would really like to see how we're going to address that in similar matters, and also wages.
Right.
You know, our nutrition folks, how's that going? Because there were some issues there, and I had a young lady talk to me this weekend about having to make the decision to leave MCPS because the hours weren't secure, and working 2 jobs already, it was like, this one is going to provide better.
Right. Because
this is inconsistent. And I do have some concerns with the way things are happening with the nutrition group. And I expressed those a few meetings ago, that this is not how that was supposed to be working out. And it's almost like pitting 2 groups against the other, and it should not be. But those employees who are our employees, I don't want to see anybody making below minimum wage. Quite frankly, I don't want to see anybody making below $15, which is still bare minimum. But we have got to do something, and one of the biggest things is these folks need consistent employment and a way to make sure they can ensure to survive.
Right. So two things. We are discussing the wage issues with SMP employees, and I do think that we will do something, recommend something in the budget to address those issues. The other thing that just did happen, as we all know, the minimum wage went up to $12. Right. And we did have some employees who were under the $12, where those have been adjusted. All the employees, any employee that was under $12 an hour has been adjusted to a new scale that was created and they, starting this month, they are adjusted, and so we don't have anybody under minimum wage.
Right, but as we know, $12.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just not enough.
Right.
Okay. Anything else? Thanks, Dan. All right, I think we've already on to advisory committees, and I think we've already done the gifted, last month or the month before, but we have Spec Ed, CTE, and what's that? the Health Advisory Board. So anyway, does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the advisory committee memberships? We have 3 of them.
A motion that we, that we accept the membership provided to us for the advisory committees. Yes, all 3. Can we? Yes.
Do I have a second?
All 3 that are listed.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. So, looking at the makeup on the boards, our committees, this hasn't been an issue for me for a long time. They do not fully represent the makeup of MCPS or the community. And I have some questions about when the committees meet, how we're actually recruiting folks from community, because there are different concerns with parents having to work, when committees meet, exactly what the requirements are for the committee. So I know we are going to have to dig deeper into how we do recruitment for our committees, because we're not getting the full input and perspective from our diverse community, and that's important.
Any other discussion on these? All right, Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
I just got news that my nephew's home from Dubai, 6 months in Dubai. Very excited.
Wow.
What happened?
My nephew's home from 6 months in Dubai. Sorry, it was, he wasn't supposed to be home until Thursday. We're very glad he's home. Very glad, so sorry about that. Miss Bond, Miss Franklin.
I'm going to vote no for those reasons, because I have raised this several times, and we've got to do something different.
Miss Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Miss Cass.
Yes.
Miss Parton.
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is unfinished business. Do we have any items of unfinished business? Hearing none, the next item of business is new business. Aside from the thing we already put on the agenda, is there any other items of new business?
I have something I'd like to see us address.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's a big one, and so I don't know what conversation can be had, but after the recent shooting in Virginia Beach, at an elementary school of no less, just safety in our schools. I think there's a lot of parents who are expressing concern, and I don't blame them. And I know it's a very big topic. I understand that it's not something that has an instant solution, but the more you keep seeing these things in the news, the more it makes me concerned that we need to really have a very strong plan of how we're going to keep our students safe in schools. And I don't know how, I'm just bringing it up. I don't know how we discuss it or what to do to, Dr. Briggen, I guess I'd look to you to any thoughts you have about that, or what we, I'm sure you've thought about it since it's happened.
Maybe I can speak first real quick.
Okay.
So monthly, there is a safety meeting. Mr. Garrettson runs that, and it's the 2 towns and the county police officers get together and talk about safety concerns, and they plan the drills and all that, because that's very intensive. And I guess what I'm saying is we already have a vehicle. Maybe we need to mobilize that a little bit differently.
I don't disagree. We had a great dialogue with our law enforcement on Friday afternoon, and I think it was right after that when we got news of what happened in Newport News. It's everybody's nightmare as a parent and a superintendent to hear anything like that happening in his school. where I came from, we had discussions, and I'll say it just to be honest, because I don't know any other way, a potential of having metal detectors. And, that was a conversation. We never decided on anything where we were going, but, there's good and bad to that, right? Perception, cost, efficiency, and all that. And I don't know. I don't think there's an easy answer where we could say, hey, I can do this and guarantee the safety and security of everybody tomorrow. But I do know there's a couple things that we can do, and one is work more closely with our law enforcement, which I think we've started, at least myself personally, to establish a positive relationship with the people in charge. And then to continually working with Jason, we actually, Mr. Garrettson, we met after that meeting, had a long, extensive conversation on some things that he's been doing that are ongoing, and some of the things that we're implementing, like the CRG maps and all that stuff, to have more accurate digital mapping for law enforcement and for us, God forbid the need arises. And also to work with our people, because any security procedure, is only as good as the person behind it. And we all have buzzers to get into the building, right? And sometimes we're being pulled in 4 different directions and the buzzer's going off and there's a mom at the door and we just say, come on in, and we don't, ask for ID and do that. That's human nature. So sometimes those things we got to reinforce. So we run out the back door because we want to go to the parking lot and come back in and we prop the door open. Those things happen because we're humans and we do things sometimes, for convenience without thinking of the security implications. So there's a lot we can do to answer to your question, Ms. Cass, and continue to revisit it. And we'll bring suggestions and things that warrant the attention of the board and see where you guys feel on that too. It's definitely on all of our minds though.
Mr. Garrettson, we also still have that software, don't we? Yeah. That teachers have access to with just the touch of their computer. And I know that all of our law enforcement agencies have layouts of all of our schools. So when they get that alert, they know exactly where it's at in the school.
And we just made sure they had keys as well, because some of them didn't have the access cards.
Yes.
Sorry. There we go. That we did set money aside from our ESSER funding to allocate for additional school security. And so we're going to be bringing, there will be decisions that the board can make. We have a big chunk of money that we have set aside to address this. And so as I move into this new role, I'll be able to work with Jason on identifying, and obviously Dr. Bragan on bringing some recommendations to you from listening to our community and certainly to our law enforcement. But we have earmarked a big chunk of money to address this, and so there will be some funds for you to use.
Well, and can I ask too, it seemed like to me, if I'm recalling a conversation maybe with a sub, that they might not have a swipe card, and sometimes the door being propped open is because when they're in the building, they don't have a card, so they have to do that to get back and forth. So even if it were a situation where you pick up a swipe card for the day and leave it at the office when you leave, I mean, is that something also that we might want to check into? Because I've heard from a couple people that that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I actually had that problem as a sub myself.
I guess what's on the table right now is whether or not we want to put this on the agenda to talk about.
Gotcha.
And we can bring up all those things
Right.
the next time.
Yeah.
So do we want to?
My vote's to put it on the agenda then.
And like I said, I don't expect instant results or conclude, but I think it's a dialogue we need to really start having, because I think people in the community want to hear that dialogue.
Yeah. So, okay, so we've got really two safety things that we're talking about, the athletic trainers, and we're talking about just
school safety.
General school safety.
I'm going to add a
Yeah,
third.
go ahead.
I'm going to add a third to safety. That seems to be the topic of the night with due respect, it should be. Sue, first off, thank you, because I was going to say two things. You said my first one, so thank you for that. I've been hearing the same thing. You know how I am. I'm married to a law enforcement officer. Safety is the first thing in my mind, and I want to make sure we, as a community and as a board, are doing everything we can to keep our students safe. So thank you for that. Thank you, Dr. Bragan, for thinking about that and seeing what we can do to make that more feasible. and add some things to our security system, which we already have a really good security system in place and great law enforcement has plans. So we are very blessed with that. The thing I did want to mention is on the topic of safety is sexual assault. So this isn't a new topic for the board. It isn't a new topic in the sad to say world that we are living in today. I actually want to talk about two different topics. I want to talk about sexual assault and then just assault, because they are both still two safety issues with our students, both different in their right being, but both still very important. We have heard from community members that have approached us recently about a sexual assault policy. And we have heard for years, I've heard for years on the board, the board's received emails, we've had other parents, community members come and talk to us about that. We need to take action. I have taken upon myself to meet with Dr. Bragan personally and discuss my personal feelings and opinions on what we need to do. Even though I know nothing is required by the state, and I do know that we do have other policies that maybe might interlink, I think we need to have a standalone sexual assault policy that addresses all the issues that our community, our parents, our students, anybody else may have, and make that a guideline for not only what we need to do for the victims of a sexual assault, but for their safety, but also for the school's safety as well, to provide guidelines for our administration and our teachers, because I don't feel like they are properly equipped as far as maybe having guidelines and protocols to follow. So I would like to also add for the business meeting that we bring up the topic of having a sexual assault and possibly just an assault policy added that the board makes as a standalone policy for discussion.
All right, that's the will of the board on that. Can I make maybe ask the board, so we have three things here that we want to just at least come back and visit and have some discussions about, which could lead to us taking some action. The safety issue as far as trainers, athletic trainers, the general school safety issue, and the safety issue as far as assault and sexual assault. And I guess what I'm going to ask, since we have three things, would it be okay with the board, those of you who nodded yes, is it okay if you allow the leadership team to possibly spread those out over, the next month or two as needed?
Can I add something? I'm sorry. Dr. Bragan, my apologies. Would you like to elaborate some on your thoughts on that policy and maybe some things that we had discussed and what you are already talking about and providing and possibly putting in place?
Sure. We had sexual harassment specific policies where I came from, and it was an issue. It was actually a topic of conversation in the months before I left my former position. And what we found is that we were not, a lot of our present policies and procedures, and we do have some here that overlap, right? Our harassment policy, our code of conduct, and some other things overlap would cover some of those inappropriate behaviors. But what I found in my previous district, we weren't 100% aligned with the Title IX requirements that were updated a few years ago during COVID. And as I looked at our policies that I could find in recent times here in Montgomery County, and in a conversation that I had with our attorney via an email this afternoon, there's some compliance issues that we have too with Title IX. So this might be an opportunity for us to bring it all together and have that conversation. I was just asking Ms. Drake if I'm still getting acclimated to our procedures here. In my previous districts, we had policy committees where we'd get it behind the scenes and kind of vet these things out. We don't really have that here. So I would ask the board's permission for myself and the central office team to flesh out a couple things, put something together, and bring it back to all of you to take a look at. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, board. We will take those three items. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Garrison, go ahead. No problem.
Is it not on?
There it is.
I would just share, for purposes of planning, discussed in leadership team earlier this morning, as part of your strategic plan, the division will be providing to the community, parents, employees, a safety survey that's coming forward. Our discussion this morning was that it would probably go out later this week, early next week. So just for purposes of your planning, just wanted to make sure the board was aware that we're surveying our community to get their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions. Don't know how quickly and what kind of response we'll get, but for the purposes of your planning, I just want to make sure that was shared with you. Forgive me.
No, that's timely, thank you. Okay, I think we are up to announcements and information. Anyone have any announcements?
Announced that the Dialogue on Race will be having their winter summit on the 28th. And one of the most important pieces of that is student voices. So invite all of you to come out.
Thanks, Benny. That was January 28th?
28th.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna do this a little bit of a stretch on announcements and information because I really don't know exactly where it would fall. But as I rode down the road the other night and looked up at CPS and just thought, wow, how amazing it looks. And even though I've got to go in CES and Bellevue, I hadn't got to go into CPS yet. And I'm just wondering, do we have a plan for taking a tour, for going in or doing something? I mean,
Yeah, you're going to get some information here pretty soon about some open house
good
events.
girl,
Working
I
with the
knew
principals
it.
there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. The upcoming school board meetings are listed in the agenda. So those are there. And we are now going to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss one personnel matter?
So moved.
Drake, will you please call the roll?
I want that memorized by the next meeting.
It took you a year.
Ms. Franklin.
Ms. Bond.
Ms. Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson. Yes. Ms. Cass.
Yes.
Ms. Parton.
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion, oh,
You said Franklin?
Oh, I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for catching that. I'm sorry.
motion passes. We are now in closed session.